The alarm bell screamed through the metal corridors of Research Station Kepler-7. Red lights flashed on every wall, painting the faces of running scientists and security guards in bloody shadows. Dr. Kim Tae-ho pressed his back against the cold wall and watched 3 medical teams rush past him, carrying stretchers and emergency equipment. Another handler was down. That made 17 this month. Tae-ho walked slowly toward Containment Bay 12, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. The other researchers had learned to stay away from this section of the station. Only the bravest or most foolish still came here, and most of them ended up in the medical wing. Through the thick plasma glass, he could see the beast that had turned their research station into a nightmare. Subject 77 stood 12 feet tall in the center of the containment room. Its body looked like it was made from living crystal with sharp edges that caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. Golden light pulsed through its transparent skin like a slow heartbeat. 6 long arms ended in claws that could cut through steel like paper. When it moved, the crystals on its back made soft musical sounds, but there was nothing peaceful about those melodies. The creature had been beautiful once, Tae-ho thought, before they learned what those claws could do to flesh and bone. Commander Zenthari Vexka lay on the floor of the containment room, green blood pooling around his massive body. The warrior had been the 3rd handler to try today. Like the others, he had entered with confidence, weapons ready, and commands on his lips. The beast had responded the same way it always did, with violence. 2 more Zenthari warriors dragged their commander toward the exit, their own bodies marked with fresh cuts. The beast watched them go, its golden eyes following every movement. When the door sealed shut, it returned to the corner where it always waited. Tae-ho had been studying Subject 77 for 3 months now. They had found it drifting in space, locked, inside a dead ship that had been floating in the void for who knew how long. The ship's records were damaged, but they could tell it had come from somewhere far beyond the known galaxy. The beast was the only living thing they found on board. At first they thought it might be sleeping. It had not moved for the first week after they brought it to the station. The medical scanners showed it was alive, but it just sat in the corner like a statue made of crystal and light. Some of the researchers started to think it might be peaceful. They were wrong. The first handler had been Dr. Mills, a human researcher who specialized in first contact protocols. He had approached slowly, speaking in calm tones, following every rule in the book. The beast had looked at him for a long moment, tilted its head like it was listening, then struck faster than anyone could see. Mills survived, but he would never use his right arm the same way again. After that, they tried the Zenthari approach. The warrior species believed that all creatures respected strength and clear commands. Their handlers entered the room like generals addressing troops, voices loud and firm, weapons visible but not threatening. The beast responded by becoming more violent than they had ever seen it. The Corvani tried next. Their people were known for their mental abilities, their skill at reading thoughts and emotions. The beast had torn through their psychic shields like they were made of paper, and left 2 of their best mind readers in comas that lasted for weeks. Every species in the galaxy had their own ideas about how to handle dangerous animals. They had tried them all. Food rewards, punishment systems, isolation, medication, even surgery to remove its claws. Nothing worked. If anything, each attempt made the creature more aggressive than before. The Galactic Council was losing patience. Station Kepler-7 was supposed to be studying new forms of life, not running a prison for an unstable killer. The messages from the Council grew more urgent each week. If they could not find a way to control or communicate with Subject 77 soon, they would have to consider termination. Tae-ho understood their position, but something about the situation bothered him. In all his years of research, he had never seen an animal that was violent without reason. Predators killed to eat. Territorial creatures fought to protect their space. Even the most dangerous animals had patterns, behaviors that made sense when you understood their needs. Subject 77 was different. Its violence seemed random, but Tae-ho was starting to think it might not be random at all. He had been watching the security recordings, studying every interaction between the beast and its handlers. There was something there, some detail he was missing. The sound of footsteps made him turn. Park Ji-woo walked down the hallway carrying a toolbox and wearing the simple gray uniform of the station maintenance crew. The young man nodded to Tae-ho as he passed, then stopped when he saw the blood on the containment room floor. "Another one?" Ji-woo asked, his voice quiet. Tae-ho nodded. Commander Vexka tried the direct approach. Same result as always. Ji-woo set down his toolbox and looked through the glass at Subject 77. The beast had moved closer to the window, its golden eyes fixed on the two humans. For a moment, the three of them simply stared at each other. "It looks sad," Ji-woo said. Tae-ho blinked. In all the reports, all the meetings, all the discussions about Subject 77, no one had ever used that word. Dangerous, violent, unpredictable, alien, but never sad. "What makes you say that?" Tae-ho asked. Ji-woo shrugged. "I work on the air recycling systems in this section. I see it sometimes when I'm doing repairs. It just sits in that corner looking at nothing. Reminds me of my neighbor's dog after his owner died. Same look in the eyes." Before Tae-ho could respond, Ji-woo picked up his toolbox and continued down the hallway. The doctor watched him go, then turned back to Subject 77. The beast was still standing near the glass, but something about its posture seemed different now. Less threatening, more tired. For the first time in months, Tae-ho began to wonder if they had been asking the wrong questions. Maybe the problem was not how to control Subject 77. Maybe the problem was understanding why it needed to be controlled at all. The red light stopped flashing. The alarm bells went silent. But in Containment Bay 12, the beast that obeyed no one continued its lonely watch, waiting for something that might never come. Dr. Kim Tae-ho could not believe what he was hearing. He stared at Park Ji-woo across his desk, wondering if the maintenance worker had lost his mind. "You want to do what?" Tae-ho asked. "I want to try talking to it," Ji-woo said simply. "Just talking. No weapons, no commands, no tricks. Just a normal conversation." Tae-ho rubbed his temples. The medical reports from yesterday's incident were still fresh in his mind. Commander Vexka would live, but he would carry those scars forever. The Zinthari warrior had been their best hope for controlling Subject 77, and the beast had nearly killed him in seconds. "Ji-woo, that thing has injured 17 trained handlers. These were experts in animal behavior, military specialists, psychic researchers. What makes you think you can succeed where they failed?" Ji-woo shifted in his chair. "Maybe that's the problem. Everyone who goes in there treats it like a dangerous animal. But what if it's not really dangerous? What if it's just scared?" "Scared?" Tae-ho almost laughed. "That creature is 12 feet tall and made of living crystal. It has claws that can cut through steel. What could it possibly be afraid of?" "Us," Ji-woo said quietly. "Think about it, Doctor. It wakes up on a strange ship, in a place it doesn't recognize, surrounded by aliens it's never seen before. Everyone who approaches it comes with weapons and loud voices trying to force it to obey. How would you react?" Tae-ho was quiet for a long moment. He had spent so much time thinking about Subject 77 as a research problem that he had forgotten to think about it as a living being with feelings and fears. "Even if you're right," Tae-ho said, "I can't authorize this. The safety protocols are clear. No unauthorized personnel in containment areas. No contact without proper protective equipment. The insurance alone would—" "I'll take full responsibility," Ji-woo interrupted. "Write it up as a maintenance inspection. I need to check the air filters in that room anyway. If something goes wrong, it's on me. Not you or the station." Tae-ho wanted to say no. Every rule, every regulation, every bit of common sense told him this was insane. But something about Ji-woo's quiet confidence made him pause. The young man had been working on the station for 2 years. He was reliable, careful, and he seemed to notice things that others missed. "I'll need to discuss this with Commander Choi," Tae-ho said finally. Station Commander Choi Min-soo was not happy about the request. He spent 20 minutes listing all the reasons why it was a terrible idea. But in the end, the pressure from the Galactic Council made the decision for him. They were running out of options and termination orders were already being prepared. "One attempt," Choi said. "Full medical team on standby, security team ready to intervene. And if that thing so much as twitches wrong, we're pulling you out. Immediately. The viewing gallery above Containment Bay 12 had never been so crowded. Scientists, security officers, medical staff, and even some of the station's administrative personnel had gathered to watch. Word had spread quickly that someone was actually going to try a different approach with Subject 77. Dr. Lee So-young, the station's chief psychologist, set up her monitoring equipment to record everything. This is either going to be a breakthrough in interspecies communication, she said to Tae-ho, or we're about to watch someone get killed. Ji-woo stood outside the containment room, looking smaller than usual in his simple gray uniform. He had refused all protective gear, all weapons, all communication devices. He carried only his basic maintenance tools in a small lunch bag. Remember, Tae-ho said through the intercom, if it shows any signs of aggression, you get out immediately. Don't try to be a hero. Ji-woo nodded and placed his hand on the door scanner. The heavy metal door slid open with a soft hiss. Subject 77 was waiting in its usual corner. But the moment Ji-woo stepped into the room, the creature's entire body began to glow brighter. The golden light pulsing through its crystal skin quickened, like a racing heart. Its 6 arms spread wide, claws extended, in the same threatening posture they had seen so many times before. Everyone in the viewing gallery held their breath. Ji-woo walked 3 steps into the room, and then did something no one expected. He sat down on the floor, cross-legged like a child in a classroom. He was still close enough to the door to escape, but far enough into the room to show he was not immediately running away. "Hello?" Ji-woo said in a normal voice, as if he was greeting a neighbor. "My name is Ji-woo. I work on this station. I fix things when they break." Subject 77's glow remained bright, but the creature seemed confused by this approach. It had been expecting commands, threats, or weapons. Instead, it was getting casual conversation. "I've been watching you for a while," Ji-woo continued, settling more comfortably on the floor. "You look tired. I bet you don't sleep very well in here. The lights are always on and people are always bothering you." Slowly, very slowly, the golden glow in the creature's body began to fade back to its normal level. Its arms lowered slightly, though the claws remained extended. "I spent the morning fixing the air recycling system on Deck 7, Ji-woo said, as if he was talking to an old friend. "Someone had stuffed garbage into one of the intake vents. It took me 3 hours to clean it all out. People can be really inconsiderate sometimes." In the viewing gallery, Dr. Lee was frantically taking notes. Subject 77's body language was changing in ways they had never seen before. The rigid, threatening posture was slowly relaxing. "I brought lunch with me," Ji-woo said, pulling a small package from his bag. "Just some rice and vegetables. Nothing fancy. I usually eat in the maintenance office, but it's kind of lonely there. Mind if I eat here today?" Subject 77 tilted its head, a gesture that looked almost curious. The creature took 1 step forward, then stopped, as if testing whether this human would react with fear or aggression. Ji-woo unwrapped his food and began eating, completely ignoring the 12-foot crystal being that could kill him in an instant. He talked between bites, sharing stories about his work, mentioning funny things he had seen around the station, complaining mildly about the quality of the food in the cafeteria. After 10 minutes, something incredible happened. Subject 77 moved closer, not in the fast, aggressive way they had seen before, but slowly, carefully, like an animal approaching something new but interesting. The creature settled on the floor about 6 feet away from Ji-woo, folding its long legs beneath its crystal body. The viewing gallery was completely silent. In 3 months of study, this was the first time Subject 77 had chosen to sit down while a human was in the room. "You're probably wondering why I'm here," Ji-woo said, offering a piece of his rice to the air between them. The creature looked at the food but did not take it. "Everyone else who comes in here wants something from you. They want you to obey or perform or prove something. I don't want anything except maybe some company while I eat lunch." Subject 77's crystal formations began to shift and change, creating new patterns of light and shadow. For the first time, since its capture, The sounds it made were soft and musical rather than harsh and threatening. Ji-woo finished his meal and packed away the empty containers. "Well, that was nice," he said, standing up slowly. "Thanks for letting me eat here. Maybe I'll come back tomorrow if that's okay with you." He walked toward the door at the same casual pace he had used when entering. Subject 77 watched him go, but made no move to follow or attack. As the door sealed shut behind him, the viewing gallery erupted in excited conversation. Scientists compared notes, security officers looked confused, and medical staff wondered why they had not been needed. But in Containment Bay 12, Subject 77 remained sitting in the center of the room, looking toward the door where the strange human had disappeared. For the first time in months, it was not alone. 3 weeks had passed since Ji-woo's first lunch with Subject 77. The routine had become something everyone on the station looked forward to watching. Every day at noon, the maintenance worker would arrive at Containment Bay 12 with his lunch and his toolbox. Every day, the creature would move a little closer. Dr. Kim Tae-ho watched from the viewing gallery as Ji-woo settled into his usual spot on the floor. Today, Subject 77 was sitting only 3 feet away, close enough that Ji-woo could have reached out and touched its crystal surface if he wanted to. Day 21, Dr. Lee So-young said into her recorder. The subject continues to show calm behavior during lunch visits. Stress indicators are at the lowest levels we have recorded since capture. In the containment room below, Ji-woo was pulling small metal objects from his toolbox. "I brought you something today," he said to the creature. "I found these broken pieces in the workshop. Thought you might find them interesting." The metal scraps were just spare parts, bent wires and small components that would normally go into the recycling system. But Ji-woo had noticed how Subject 77 seemed fascinated by anything that moved or changed. The creature would watch for hours as he worked on repairs, its golden eyes following every tool. Ji-woo placed the metal pieces on the floor between them and began eating his lunch. "I don't know if you get bored in here," he said. "I would. Nothing to do except sit and wait for people to bother you." Subject 77 looked at the metal scraps for a long moment, then extended one of its 6 arms. The movement was slow and careful, nothing like the violent strikes they had seen before. With surprising gentleness, the creature picked up a bent wire and began straightening it with its claws. "Incredible," whispered Dr. Yoon Hae-jin, the station's linguist. She had been studying Subject 77's vocalizations for weeks, trying to find patterns in the musical sounds it made. "Look at that precision. Those claws could cut through steel, but it's handling that wire like it's made of glass." The creature spent the next 20 minutes working with the metal pieces. It straightened the wire, sorted the components by size and shape, then began connecting them together. Its movements were purposeful, like it was following some kind of plan. "It's building something," Tae-ho realized. But what? When Subject 77 finished, it had created a small sculpture, a twisted piece of metal art that caught the light and threw interesting shadows on the walls. The creature held it up for Ji-woo to see, and for the first time since its capture, it made a sound that was clearly not threatening. The musical tones were soft and complex, rising and falling like a gentle song. Ji-woo smiled and nodded his approval. "That's beautiful," he said. "You're really talented. Are you an artist where you come from?" Subject 77 tilted its head at the question, then made more of the musical sounds. The notes were different this time, more urgent, like it was trying to communicate something important. "Dr. Yoon," Tae-ho called over the intercom. "Are you getting this?" "Every note," the linguist replied, her fingers flying over her recording equipment. "This is definitely language. The tonal patterns are too complex to be random. It's trying to tell us something." Over the following days, the interactions between Ji-woo and Subject 77 became more elaborate. The creature would create new sculptures, from whatever materials Ji-woo brought, each one more intricate than the last. In return, Ji-woo would share stories about life on the station, about his home planet, about the simple pleasures of fixing things that were broken. Dr. Yoon worked day and night to decode the creature's musical language. She discovered that different colors of light corresponded to different emotional states. Golden light meant curiosity or interest. Soft blue meant contentment. Bright white meant excitement. The harsh red glow they had seen during violent episodes appeared to be distress or fear. "It's been afraid this whole time," she explained to the research team during their weekly meeting. Every handler who entered that room was broadcasting aggression in their body language, their voice tones, even their smell. The creature was responding to what it perceived as threats. "But why didn't it respond to Dr. Mills?" Taeho asked. "He followed all the peaceful contact protocols." "Because protocols aren't the same as genuine respect," Dr. Lee answered. Mills was being careful, but he was still treating Subject 77 as something to be studied and controlled. Jiwoo treats it as someone to have lunch with. The breakthrough came on day 32. Jiwoo was showing the creature a small puzzle box he had found in his quarters, a simple wooden toy with sliding pieces that formed different patterns. Subject 77 watched with interest as Jiwoo demonstrated how the pieces moved. "Want to try?" Jiwoo asked, offering the box. The creature accepted the puzzle with careful hands and began manipulating the pieces. Within minutes, it had not only solved the original pattern but had created 3 new ones that Jiwoo had never seen before. "You're smarter than all of us, aren't you?" Jiwoo said with a laugh. Subject 77 made a series of musical tones that sounded almost like laughter in return. Then it began creating patterns of light on its crystal surface, shifting colors and rhythmic sequences that reminded Jiwoo of a computer display. "Dr. Yoon," Jiwoo called to the viewing gallery, "I think it's trying to show me something." "Can you see this?" The linguist was already recording everything. "The light patterns are definitely communicative. It's teaching you its language." For the next hour, Subject 77 patiently showed Jiwoo how different colors and patterns meant different things. Pulsing golden light meant yes or agreement. Steady blue meant safe or calm. Rapid rainbow shifts meant excitement or joy. Jiwoo proved to be a quick student. Soon he was responding to the creature's lights with simple gestures and words. When Subject 77 flashed golden light, Jiwoo would nod. When it showed blue, he would sit back and relax. "My God," Dr. Yoon whispered. "They're having a conversation." But the most amazing discovery came when Jiwoo asked a direct question. "What's your name?" he said, pointing to himself and saying Jiwoo several times. Subject 77 created a complex pattern of swirling lights that seemed to dance across its crystal surface. The pattern was beautiful and unique, like a signature made of colored light. "Is that your name?" Jiwoo asked. The creature flashed golden light in response. "Yes." From that day forward, Jiwoo never called it Subject 77. He learned to recreate a simple version of the light pattern using a small flashlight, flashing it in the same rhythm whenever he wanted to get the creature's attention. Dr. Taeho found himself spending more and more time in the viewing gallery, watching these daily interactions with growing amazement. The creature that had been their greatest problem was becoming their greatest discovery. But he also knew that their peaceful research time was limited. The reports to the Galactic Council were becoming harder to write. How do you explain that your dangerous subject had become a friend? How do you justify keeping an intelligent being locked in a containment room when it was clearly capable of communication and cooperation? The questions that kept him awake at night were getting more difficult to ignore, and he suspected that the answers might change everything about their mission on Station Kepler 7. In the containment room, Jiwoo and his crystal friend continued their daily meetings, building a bridge between 2 species that no one had thought possible. Neither of them knew that their friendship was about to be tested by forces much larger than a research station in deep space. The message that changed everything came on a Tuesday morning. Jiwoo was having his usual lunch with his crystal friend when the creature began creating light patterns he had never seen before. These were not the simple colors they had been using to communicate. These were complex images, moving pictures made of light that seemed to tell a story. Dr. Yoon Hae-jin watched from the viewing gallery with growing excitement. After weeks of studying the creature's language, she was finally beginning to understand the deeper meanings behind the light displays. "It's showing us memories," she whispered to Dr. Taeho. "Look at those patterns. They're too detailed to be abstract concepts. These are actual events." In the containment room, the creature's crystal surface had become like a living movie screen. The lights showed images of space, of stars and planets, of other beings that looked similar to itself, but with different crystal formations and colors. Jiwoo watched in amazement as the story unfolded in front of him. The creature showed him a beautiful ship, long and graceful, made from the same crystal material as its body. Inside the ship were dozens of beings like itself, their lights creating a symphony of colors as they moved through the corridors. It was a family, Jiwoo realized. They were travelers, explorers, artists moving through space together. Then the images changed. The peaceful lights became harsh and frightening. Other ships appeared, dark and angular, nothing like the crystal vessel. The attackers came without warning, their weapons tearing through the beautiful ship like it was made of paper. The creature's lights began to pulse faster, showing the chaos and terror of the attack. Jiwoo saw the crystal beings fighting to protect their ship, but they were not warriors. They were peaceful people who had never expected violence. One by one, the lights that represented the other crystal beings went dark. The creature showed, itself hiding in the deepest part of the ship, protecting something precious. A small crystal device that glowed with thousands of tiny lights, like a computer made of living crystal. The memory core, Dr. Yoon breathed. It was protecting the ship's memory core. The story continued. The creature showed itself alone on the dying ship, the last survivor of its family. It had shut down all systems except life support, drifting in space for what might have been years or decades, waiting to die with its family's memories, until the humans found it. Jiwoo felt tears running down his face. All this time they had been treating the creature like a dangerous animal, when it was actually a survivor of genocide. It had watched its entire family die, then spent years alone in space with nothing but memories and grief. "I'm sorry," Jiwoo said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry for what happened to you, and I'm sorry for how we treated you when you first came here." The creature's lights shifted to a soft blue. The color they had learned meant sadness but also acceptance. It reached out one of its arms and gently touched Jiwoo's hand. The crystal felt warm, and Jiwoo could feel a faint vibration, like a heartbeat. "Your family," Jiwoo said. "The memory core. Do you still have it?" The creature flashed golden light. Yes. Then it created new patterns, showing the location where it had hidden the device on the derelict ship. The memory core contained everything, the creature explained through its lights. Art, music, science, history, and the recorded thoughts and personalities of everyone who had died. Dr. Tae-ho was already on his communicator, calling the retrieval team. "We need to go back to that ship immediately," he told them. "There's something there that our guest wants to recover." But as word of the discovery spread through the station, not everyone saw it the same way. General Nam Woo-jin arrived on the next transport, along with a team of military specialists and scientists from the Galactic Council. The general was a tall, imposing man, with scars across his face from a dozen different battles. He looked at the creature through the viewing glass like he was studying a new weapon. "So it can communicate," he said to Dr. Tae-ho. "Good. That makes it more valuable, not less. An intelligent alien that can be controlled is worth 100 mindless beasts." "It's not being controlled," Tae-ho protested. "It's cooperating because we're treating it with respect." "Same thing," the general replied. "The point is, we now have a method that works. We can replicate this technique with other specimens." "Other specimens? Where there's one, there are usually more," General Nam explained. "We need to find the rest of this species and bring them under galactic protection. With proper training, they could be invaluable allies in our border conflicts with the outer systems." Dr. Tae-ho felt a chill run down his spine. "You want to turn them into soldiers?" "I want to give them purpose," the general corrected. "Right now, this one is just sitting in a cage playing with metal scraps. Think of what it could accomplish with proper direction." That afternoon, General Nam brought his own team of specialists to try the same approach Jiwoo had used. They entered the containment room with calm voices and peaceful gestures, offering food and simple gifts just as Jiwoo had done. The creature responded with immediate violence. The specialists barely escaped with their lives. The creature's crystal claws left deep gouges in the reinforced walls, and its angry red light filled the room like a warning beacon. "What went wrong?" General Nam demanded. They followed the same protocol as the maintenance worker. Dr. Lee, So Young, had been monitoring the encounter from the viewing gallery. "They followed the actions," she explained, "but not the intent. The creature can sense the difference between genuine respect and manipulation. Your people were treating kindness like a tool to get what they wanted. Then we'll use the maintenance worker," the general decided. "He can be our liaison. Train the creature to follow orders through him." "No," Jiwoo said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. He had been standing in the corner, watching the failed attempt with growing anger. "I won't be part of this. It's not a request," General Nam said. "This is a matter of galactic security. That creature is a potential weapon of incredible power. We need to study it, understand it, and learn to replicate its abilities." "It's not an it," Jiwoo replied, his voice getting stronger. "It has a name, a family, a history. It's a person, not a weapon." "It's an alien," the general snapped. "A resource to be managed for the good of all species in the galaxy. Your personal feelings are irrelevant." Dr. Tejo watched this exchange with growing dread. He had spent his career studying alien life, forms, but he had always thought of them as subjects first and individuals second. Jiwoo's friendship with the creature had changed that perspective, but apparently, not everyone was ready to make the same change. "What if we refuse?" Tejo asked. General Nam smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then I'll find people who won't refuse. This station is under Galactic Council jurisdiction. I can replace every person here if necessary." In the containment room, the creature had returned to its corner, but its lights were no longer the calm blue of contentment. They pulsed with anxious yellow patterns, as if it could sense the danger gathering around it. Jiwoo looked through the glass at his friend and made a decision that would change both their lives. He couldn't let them turn the last survivor of a peaceful species into a weapon. He couldn't let them repeat the same violence that had destroyed the creature's family in the first place. But he was just a maintenance worker on a research station. What could he possibly do against the might of the Galactic Council? As he watched the creature's worried lights dance across its crystal surface, Jiwoo began to form a plan. It would be dangerous, maybe impossible, but he had to try. His friend had trusted him with the truth about its family, its history, its pain. Now it was time for Jiwoo to prove that trust was not misplaced. The plan began at 3 a.m, when the station's night shift was smallest and most of the research staff were asleep. Jiwoo moved through the maintenance tunnels with the quiet efficiency of someone who knew every pipe and wire in the station. Dr. Lee So-young and Dr. Yoon Hae-jin were waiting for him in the secondary computer lab, their faces tense with worry and determination. They had spent the last week secretly preparing for this moment, ever since General Nam had announced his intention to transfer the creature to a military research facility. "Are you sure about this?" Dr. Lee asked, as Jiwoo connected his maintenance tools to the station's security system. "If we're caught, our careers are over. We could face prison time." "If we don't try," Jiwoo replied, "my friend becomes a weapon. I can't let that happen." The creature had spent the last 3 days growing more agitated as military personnel filled the station. Its lights had shifted from the calm blues and golds Jiwoo knew to anxious yellows and frightened whites. It seemed to understand that something bad was coming. "Security cameras are looped," Dr. Yoon reported from her computer terminal. "We have maybe 20 minutes before someone notices the pattern." Jiwoo made his way to Containment Bay 12, his heart pounding so loud he was sure everyone on the station could hear it. Through the viewing glass, he could see his crystal friend sitting in the center of the room, its lights pulsing with nervous energy. The creature looked up as Jiwoo entered the room, and immediately its colors shifted to concerned gold. It could sense his fear and stress. "Hey there," Jiwoo said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I need to tell you something important. The people in charge want to take you away from here. They want to use you as a weapon, make you fight in their wars." The creature's lights flashed angry red at this news. It had seen enough violence to last a lifetime. "I know," Jiwoo continued. That's why we're going to get you out of here, but I need your help. Can you interface with the station's computers the way you interfaced with your ship's systems? The creature moved closer, its crystal surface beginning to glow brighter. It extended one arm toward the wall panel that controlled the room's systems. When its claws touched the metal, sparks of electricity danced between its fingers and the circuits. The containment field shut down. The door locks disengaged. Alarms should have sounded immediately, but the creature had somehow convinced the computer that everything was normal. Amazing, Jiwoo breathed. You're not just interfacing with it, you're talking to it. They moved through the corridors together, the creature's soft footsteps surprisingly quiet for something so large. Jiwoo led the way to the docking bay where the transport ships were kept. His plan was simple: get his friend to a ship and help it escape to find any survivors of its species. But when they reached the docking bay, they found Dr. Taeho waiting for them. Jiwoo's heart sank. The head researcher stood between them and the ships, his expression unreadable in the dim lighting. I'm sorry, Jiwoo said. I know you have to report this. I know you have to stop us. But I couldn't let them turn it into a weapon. Turn who? Into a weapon? Dr. Taeho asked quietly. Jiwoo blinked in confusion. The creature. My friend. I don't see any creature here, Dr. Taeho said. I see a sentient being who has been unlawfully imprisoned. I see someone who deserves the same rights and freedoms as any other intelligent species in the galaxy. The researcher stepped aside, revealing that he had already prepared one of the smaller transport ships for launch. The fuel tanks are full. The navigation computer has star charts for the Outer Rim territories. It's not much, but it should get you far enough away to find help. Jiwoo stared at him in amazement. You're helping us escape? I'm helping correct a terrible mistake, Dr. Taeho replied. We found a survivor of genocide and we locked it in a cage. We called it a specimen instead of a person. That ends today. But as they approached the transport ship, the lights in the docking bay suddenly blazed to life. General Nam stood at the entrance with a squad of armed soldiers, their weapons trained on the small group. Step away from the alien, the general commanded. This facility is under military authority. That creature is galactic property. The crystal being's lights flashed bright red, and for a moment Jiwoo thought his friend might attack. But instead something unexpected happened. The creature moved protectively in front of Jiwoo, shielding him from the soldiers' weapons. It's protecting him, Dr. Lee observed, amazement in her voice. Even though it's the one in danger, it's trying to protect the human. General Nam raised his weapon. Last warning. Move away from the specimen or we will use force. No, Jiwoo said, stepping around his friend to face the general directly. Its name is... He paused, then created a simple version of the light pattern the creature had taught him using his flashlight. And it's not your specimen. It's not anyone's property. It's an alien life form with strategic value, the general snapped. Personal attachments are irrelevant. Personal attachments are everything, Dr. Taeho said, joining Jiwoo in front of the creature. That's what makes us different from machines. That's what makes us worth protecting. Dr. Lee and Dr. Yoon moved to stand with them, forming a human barrier between the soldiers and their crystal friend. None of them were armed, none of them were trained fighters. But they stood their ground anyway. You would risk court-martial for an alien? General Nam asked. We would risk court-martial for a friend, Jiwoo replied. The standoff stretched for long seconds. Then, slowly, the creature began to glow with soft, beautiful colors. Not the angry red of fear or the anxious yellow of worry, but gentle blues and golds that seemed to fill the entire docking bay with peaceful light. The soldiers lowered their weapons slightly, confused by the sudden change in atmosphere. Even General Nam seemed affected by the creature's calming presence. What is it doing? One of the soldiers whispered. It's choosing, Dr. Yoon realized. It could escape right now. It's powerful enough to fight through all of us. But it's choosing to stay. The creature created new light patterns, complex images that Dr. Yoon translated in real time. It says it wants to stay on the station, not as a prisoner, but as a partner. It wants to help us understand its people's culture and science. It wants to teach us how to find other survivors without violence. It's offering to work with us, Dr. Tejo said, understanding flooding his voice. Not because we're forcing it to, but because it wants to. General Nam looked confused. This was not the outcome he had expected. It will cooperate willingly? Only if we treat it as an equal, Jiwoo said. No more containment cells, no more specimens and subjects. It gets its own quarters, the same rights as any other crew member, and the freedom to leave whenever it wants. The creature flashed golden light in agreement, then created new patterns showing what it could offer. Star maps to find its people, scientific knowledge that could benefit all species, art and music that could enrich galactic culture, but only through partnership, never through force. 6 months later, Station Kepler-7 had become the most famous research facility in the galaxy. The first interspecies cooperation protocol had been signed, establishing rights for all intelligent beings regardless of their origin. Jiwoo now held the title of Human Vari High Cultural Liaison, though he still preferred to think of himself as simply a friend having lunch with an interesting companion. Every day at noon, he would sit with his crystal partner in what had once been a containment room, but was now a comfortable living space filled with art and music. The memory core had been recovered from the derelict ship, and its contents were slowly being translated and shared with the galaxy. The Varihai, as they called themselves, had been master artists and explorers. Their songs were symphonies of light that could be seen across star systems. Their paintings were made from carefully arranged cosmic dust and stellar radiation. Most importantly, the distress signals they had begun broadcasting were being answered. 3 more Varihai survivors had been found, scattered across the galaxy, each one the sole survivor of their family groups. They were coming to Station Kepler-7, drawn by the promise of others who understood their loss. Dr. Tai-Ho often stood in the viewing gallery, watching Jiwoo and his friend work together on translating ancient Varihai texts. The scene reminded him daily that the greatest discoveries came not from demanding answers, but from asking questions with respect and patience. The beast that had obeyed no one had become the teacher that enlightened everyone, simply because one human had asked, instead of commanded.